I'm with Dr. Churchill. Dr. Churchill is a naturopathic medical doctor that does work in functional medicine. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I'm
much.
looking forward to learning more.
Sure.
How did you get started in this whole area?
Oh, wow. Okay, so from 15 years old, I was diagnosed with non-essential hypertension. Nobody knew why. I was starting to have headaches every day when I was on my skateboard, and so I got taken to New York City to a place called Baby's Hospital then. They shot dye in my kidneys, looking for growths in my kidneys. They did EKGs. My mom was into making sure I got the best treatment
Moms do that.
available, yeah. So I was in Manhattan for 3 days, and so same diagnosis, we don't know. So here, take this medication. Fast forward 15 years, 30 years old, it's getting worse, right? Nobody could figure it out. My understanding at that point in time was from multiple allergies, many, like hundreds of different allergies. I was starting to become environmental patient. That's what I call my patients now, come in. The ones that can't walk down the Macy's aisle, they pass out, literally pass out if they go near the perfumes, or they walk through the aisle in the supermarket with all the cleansers, because it's really toxic.
It is.
And their bodies are so compromised, their immune systems are so compromised that they can't handle that little bit of load that comes in on top of everything else. I was really blessed, though, before I got into doing all the things I do for my patients to get rid of something like this. Someone introduced me to a meditation called Falun Gong, a Qigong system of meditation and study. And I practiced it, I guess, for about 3 months, and all my blood pressure went down. And before I was completely recalcitrant. I was on 3 medications. I was starting to be on a medication for diabetes, type 2, but I was skinny. It's very weird what's going on. But after that, it was, and I never look back, that's 22 years ago. So it's just been amazing since then. I teach that, and I always want people to practice it. It's amazing.
Why do you think the meditation made such a difference in your health?
That's a really good question. I'd say 50% physical and 50% how I perceive the world. Because if you perceive the world as being threatening in many ways that it typically isn't for, say, like a normal person, then your blood pressure is going to go up and you're going to start to have fight or flight mechanism. So I could look back in my genetics class when before I practiced the meditation and other instances in my life where I was having a lot of fight or flight constantly. But as we go through this, our bodies adapt to it. So you don't know it was so bad. And I can give a good example of that is because when my blood pressure would be so high and it wouldn't be controlled, and I just go out, I didn't have any symptoms back when I was younger, and I'd go out in the world doing what I'm doing, and I felt I had lots of energy and I could talk really fast, but I was going really fast. My blood pressure was pounding. And they gave me the medication and dropped it down to normal. Oh my goodness, this is horrible. I felt depressed. I was tired, and the medication does some depression, but their reason was, well, you were at so high, you got used to that, your body adapted. No, but your organs are going to burn out. We can't have you like that. You're going to get, you can end organ damage. We have to drop you down to normal. So just give it a few weeks, and I did, and I wasn't the way I wanted to be, but at least I wasn't at that super high level. But as the years went by, the medication stopped working. And little by little, I didn't know what to do. And then somebody introduced me to this meditation. I'd said a prayer in the church one day. I went to the church for about 9 years, just searching for help, self-help. And I said a prayer one day. I said, it was with the wafer. It was the Methodist church. Once a month, you do the communion. So I ate my wafer. This time, different than all the other times, I looked straight up at the Jesus crucifix. And I said, I want to be the best person I can possibly be, and I don't know what to do. What should I do? And literally I left, and my landlord pulled behind me, and he was Chinese, and little by little, I didn't know, but he'd been watching me for like a few months, and since I moved in. And that was completely meant to be, because he was good friends with my mom. He had a restaurant in town. My mom, it was all, I believe it was all set up for me. It was very powerful. No coincidence in life. I learned that a long time ago. And so he pulled up behind me and said, well, you're going off to naturopathic medical school soon, right? I go, yeah, you're right. I told him a couple of weeks before. And I thought he just wanted to rent my room because, So he said, well, when are you leaving? I told him. He said, what are you going to study? Well, I'm going to study this. I'm going to study that. I'm going to study Chinese medicine. That's all he had to hear was the word Chinese. He went to his car. This is 5 minutes after I said the prayer. He got the book and the video. He comes to me and he just goes, Falun Gong, Falun Gong, Falun Gong. This is for you. I'll never forget them. I could see it. My third eye's open. I could see that interaction right now. I could see the cars. I could see the grass. I could see the street. And I took the book. I have a little tear in my eye. I didn't even know why. I mean, I got something that was so amazing. It's blessed me over and over a million times. This is 22 years ago. I never stopped practicing. And that was a big thing too, because I had never kept up with anything. I mean, and then I was going to medical school literally 2 months later, or a month later, after I got this practice. Thank good I did, because I would have quit medical school. It was really hard. I mean, they analyze you in every way, shape, and form, and I use that word because they really do. I don't know if they want to weed out, but it's very tough to go through. You're being tested every minute with written tests, but you're also being tested mentally constantly. So, and I wasn't good with any of that. I had no self-esteem, a lot of issues. And luckily, you know, whenever I came back from school, or I never thought I was going to quit, but I'd have times it's pretty low. I'll just go and do the meditation, and literally it would get me out of it completely.
Wow.
Like 1 hour of Qigong, and I was a different person. It was like I had never been depressed. And I saw that. I said, this is a gift. And the one thing that teaches you is to look inside. My whole life before, and I think most of the world right now, it's all looking outside. It wants the gift. It wants the gifts. It wants everything, right? But you can't get anything till you cultivate yourself and raise your level, you know. So I realized I have to look inside. If there's some altercation or some argument or something, even if I hear a third, this is actually in our book, if you hear somebody talking to people around you, you listen to that, because it could be put there for a reason for you to look and find that attachment that's obscure and you can't find. So now I want to get rid of my attachments. I don't want all that stuff like, you know, greed and anger and that. And I hate those things now. Before, I mean, I guess I kind of lived by that credo. I didn't know any difference.
Well, we grow up that way. I mean, I was the same way. I mean, we didn't have a lot of money, so I wanted more money because we didn't have the things that I wanted. Everybody else had them.
Right.
So you get into that environment. And it wasn't looking inside when I grew up young. It was always looking outside.
Comparing yourself.
Comparing myself. And guess what happens?
Yeah.
You never win that way.
You just get slammed down constantly. Yeah.
Right.
I speak French as well as English. I was in the restaurant business, high-end restaurant business. I went to France, Switzerland. It was really, I was taught Escoffier cuisine when Escoffier was the major chef before the Nouvelle came in the beginning of the 80s. And we would go to Europe, and the restaurants, you know, 3-4 stars sometimes, and get everything, and it was just the most amazing thing. And I thought that was life. To me, that was like, this was living, and I'll do this the rest of my life. But luckily, someone intervened. But the one thing I wanted to share with you, I can see myself again on Randall Road in Princeton, walking to my house from the bus that just came from Manhattan, right? And I was all pumped up from Manhattan. I was on the fast track to owning a hole in the French Riviera, which I went, and I actually didn't do it, but I wanted to. And I would say to the universe, I didn't really believe in God or anything, I would say, je vais faire exactement comme je vais faire. I would do exactly what I want to do. That was my mantra. Basically saying, there is no God, I'm the center of the universe, and whatever I want to do, I can accomplish it. Well, little by little, the hammered me down, until I couldn't do it anymore. I was having panic attacks, passing out. You know, this is fast forward maybe 10 years later, and I was at one party one time. Everybody was partying, you know, Princeton, a lot of people had a lot of money, the kids, the parents. We weren't so wealthy. My parents were Ivy League academics, great education, all that. And each person was at the party going, this is like the big decision. What are you going to do when you grow up? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And they got to me, and I'm not kidding you. It just came out of my mouth. I'm not going to do this anymore.
Wow.
This drinking, this partying.
Yeah.
And it was a decision I made. That was 30, and that was it. Cut off right there. So ever since then, we've been doing other stuff.
Well, that's amazing, because that's not so easy when everybody else is doing it.
You have to change your, little by little, I changed my whole life.
Change your inside, because the outside sometimes doesn't work. I'm a believer that only the inside. And once I've done that, life changes.
The work.
Because you have to work on you, not somebody else. And when you get better, everything else gets better outside you.
Around you, that's so true.
Yeah.
All the relationships and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, the relationships with my family and friends, and then they were, I mean, I couldn't see what I was doing, but they could see. And they were basically saying, okay, we kind of had enough. You know, you got to find your way. You know, they used to put pictures of like Ray Kroc and people like that. And he made it when it took him till 50. And I look at these things on my dresser. They put these little cards when I wasn't there. What's this thing for? I would have thrown it away. I just didn't get it.
Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, he was like 50.
My idol, 60-something.
Was it 60?
But there's no age. We all think there's an age.
Yeah, right.
You know, every day we have a new opportunity to do whatever we want.
Thank you.
And you've done that.
Thanks for the reminder, yeah.
Yeah, it's reminders.
The everyday is a completely new life a lot of times with me. It's true. It's a journey. I mean, who was it? Aerosmith said, "It's not the destination. It's not the journey. It's not the destination. It's the journey." And that's so true. Because before, all I could see was the end, the rainbow. I had to get there. I had to get there, no matter what. And it gets so beat up, and you're fighting with all these people. You're trying to climb the ladder and all that, and you won't get anything until you know what? You give it all up, and then it starts happening.
Well, it was my first job. I was out of law school. And my first job was climbing the ladder. Mm-hmm. And I could see it from day one. Right. And I said, that's not a ladder I want to climb.
You were so smart right away.
Well, I was lucky because I had 6 bosses that day. Mm-hmm. And I have challenged with 1 boss, let alone 6.
Oh, really?
So I knew that was not for me, but I spent 2 years there learning so I could be better, so I can be better for everybody else. Cool. But I want to go out and do my thing, just like you did your thing. We have so much to give.
My thing just happened to me, though. Yeah.
And that's what the way it works.
I never thought that in a million years. You know, and in like around 2000, no, it was a little bit before that. Anyway, 2000, I went to medical school, say 4 years before that, 6, whatever. And I was working at a place called the Princeton Bio Center, which is an amazing place. They were doing orthomolecular medicine. Carl Pfeiffer was the doctor then. And the thought of even, and I would go some of their classes. You know, I hadn't had any studies, but I was working with the pharmacist. So I was learning all the treatment schedules. That's why I learned nutrition, because every patient I had to fill out their treatment schedule. And I'd look and I started getting interested. Hey, what did the doctor prescribe for them? Why are they getting the fish oil? Why are they getting the probiotics? Why? So literally way before I went to medical school, like 20 years before, I was learning all that stuff and doing it for myself. And the relationships then were so great, and that's what it started to show me. There's a whole different world, and there's another world of healing instead of the drugs, because, you know, I was hardcore going MDs back then with the medications, and they were helping me so much. So that was kind of like the beginning of my schooling there.
Well, that was great. Good. You know, the whole thing is I've been always trained by MDs, not trained, but prescribed, I call it.
Right.
And there's sort of never-ending prescription.
Well, let me say one for the record. I have a lot of amazing MD friends that are functional medicine now. They're genius. I mean, they're brilliant. They're not doing drugs anymore, very rare. We'll use, like I did, maybe 4 or 5 pharmaceuticals in between. Another, 10 IVs, peptides, nutraceuticals, homeopathics, regenerative medicine. And they're amazing. I should not use the word MD. Let's just say allopathic medicine model. That's not fair to them.
So if somebody is being challenged with health and they want to look somewhere else for something that maybe the other way didn't work.
Right.
What do you do?
Personally?
Yes.
Or the person that's looking for what should the person who's looking for somewhere else do?
What do you do in your practice?
Okay. So I have to assess you.
Okay.
There's many criteria why or why not you will do certain treatments. One's money. Okay, there's budget, because we take insurance for the labs and things like that, but basically we don't take insurance for the rest of the treatment. The second is, what's going on with you? I mean, why are you here? So looking at past history, looking at what your other doctors did, the labs, the imaging, I need all that. And I need to find out what's really happening to you, like why did you fall down sick right after you had a divorce? Or why did you get this right after you were on an airplane for 18 hours going to some third world nation? This is what's never looked at, or they don't have time, because the way the model is the allopathic model with the, with the HMOs, the doctor's getting like 5 minutes. I mean, they can get enough time maybe to figure out the right prescription. How could you ever find out the root cause of anything? And I felt bad for them. It's not even them, it's the system that's destroying medicine. And that system needs to be changed. We need to have some big guys ante up with a lot of money to start setting up new insurance companies. And this is something I talked about a couple weeks ago when I was at a major, I don't want to jump around too much, but there was a major symposium in New York State where they brought in some of the top minds of the world to figure out what the future of medicine was going to be. And I was asked to present my version of medicine, because the head of it, who just took office about 2 weeks ago, knew what I did. We worked together in the past. But what I do in my office, I'll get back to that, is you have to assess people every way, shape, and form. Sometimes I don't even have enough time. Sometimes the budgets aren't there. We just do our very best. But the ones we can really do a great thing. And we find out the root cause that we test the history is one thing, but hair, urine, stool, saliva, and blood. We test all those media. When anybody comes in my office and asks me what I do, I don't really want to go the long story, the short, they want long. I take them to the closet. We have this giant storeroom, and it has all the lab kits there, one after another, hundreds. So that's when I learned from the lab companies, because I know they need to make money. And those doctors they're the PhDs, like Dr. Quigg from Doctors Data, genius. Dr. Shaw from Great Plains Lab, genius, right? I want to know what they know. And each of them, some of them are very narrow, some are more broader. I have to be broad because I'm like a family doctor. Right. But I do specialize more in endocrinology and immune system because they definitely go together. So what I'm trying to say is those labs are key to knowing which labs to do for your patients, because you can't shock them. They don't, you're not going to do. And what if you get all the labs come back and say nothing's wrong with them? They'll be looking at you like, well, don't you know what you're doing? So you need to really understand their pathology, and you need to know the past history. As I was saying, what happened right before you fell down here, and what was this, and why. You got to ask a lot of questions that nobody else asked, and you got to sift through what they did. So it's pretty cool. Let me just get back to the symposium. So there was a symposium in Middletown, New York, which is a very small little town, like a cow town. It used to be a railroad town. I think you were there a long time ago, right?
Well, I lived in Albany, New York, and Middletown was 90 miles away.
Okay.
And on the way to New York City.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's
everybody
about 2
passed
hours
Middle.
away, hour and a half, yeah.
Yeah, and Middletown, we knew about it, but we didn't know what was going on there.
Right, all right. Well, it was interesting because the mayor came to our symposium that night. We had a cocktail party and basically said, all you people here, make sure you spend a lot of money in my town and you pump us, because they knew who we were already. He'd been supporting us from the beginning. And it's an amazing place where it's like the birth, I think, of the new medicine of the future. Not just, alternative or functional or, what I do, but really the essence of why we even treat a patient, the humanity. It's raising humanity up to help, and doctors to help people heal. And that doesn't happen in hospitals anymore, because we completely took out the part where you feel good, you have a good scent. Like you may have some essential oils, they can help you. And I'm not saying this is all medicine, but it really helps. And the materials they use and the food they do and the attitude they have towards the patients. The patient's like, I think a lot of times the patient almost becomes the enemy, unfortunately, in the big hospitals. And we know at COVID, if you looked at any media that wasn't like CNN, you could see what was kind of crazy. Things were going on and people were being put with the wrong patients. And I know they were busy and there were a lot of deaths, but there's a lot of bad stuff happening too. I think that's kind of permeated somewhat medicine in general. So we need to get back to like the health aspect, the compassion for a fellow human being.
What else did you get out of the symposium? You mentioned compassion and why that's so important.
Well, I know what compassion means to me. I mean, I've been 30 years in spiritual practices, and the Buddhist practice especially talks about compassion. And we've studied, there's 3 tenets to what we practice is truthfulness, compassion, tolerance. And that's very powerful, you put all those together. But let's just take it back to compassion in medicine. It means, hi, how are you doing? Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
It's an honor to have you in my clinic. Wow. You're, like, I'm not going to wash your feet right there, but literally, I would if you asked me to. And you know what, you can just have tears pouring on literally, you'll get the energy, because that's who we're supposed to be. And everybody, oh, that's all cliche. It's not. And you don't have to do the feet or anything, but you need to shake the hand, you need to look somebody in the eyes. That's why I think 80% of my practice is referral. And we started to get pretty good. We're busy now, before we're slow. And this is almost all referrals. If the moms come, we take care of many times menopausal. That's what I specialize in, 40 to 70. I do a lot of other things too, men's health, but a lot of women coming in. We help them be vibrant, be healthy again, be excited about life, be excited about their relationships, all of them, not just their husband, but everything. They want to go to work. They can get out of bed. Then they bring their husband, because they're in such good shape. The husband's like, what are you doing? Aha. And they can't keep up with the husband anymore.
No.
Or the husband can't keep up with them.
Vice versa,
so then he comes in, and we have a shockwave machine, and we have all these wonderful things we can do for guys. And I'm not just talking about sex, but everything, just because we do a lot of different things in my clinic. And then they bring the kids in. When they bring the kids in, I know it's going to be a future life relationship for a while, or maybe forever, because they trust you. And we have a naturopathic pediatrician in our office too now.
That's great, but the trust, it's all about you. And I remember in my practice, it was all about me. And when they said they trusted me, that was what it was all about. Because I care.
Yeah,
I want people
that's what
to
they tell me.
get
I
better.
care about them.
I want them to be better. The best health they can have is what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Mine was finance. But now it's...
You can do it in any industry.
And you can name it.
Yeah. And those are the businesses that succeed.
Right.
I was just talking to one of our partners. He came in our office yesterday, and he's not on such a spiritual thing as I am. He has his own TV show. He's a political pundit. He's fairly conservative, and he's a really good guy. And we're talking about, because something happened in my office a few months ago, and we had to fire somebody. It just didn't work out. But the energy they were bringing in was really, and they were doing things that were illegal. We didn't know at the time. Yeah. And I talked to Mark, and Mark's like, yeah. And I said, if you have any of that in your office, not even you, but if it's in your office and you're part of it, you need to weed it out, or you're not going to go anywhere. That all the energy brings you down. And we talk in Falun Gong about karma, about de, which is virtue, and karma. Those are the two substances. You Master Lee talks about you bring them with you when you birth, and you take them with you when you die. And you want to have a lot more virtue in de than you do karma. These are physical substances. And you could get the karma just by saying a bad word, giving somebody the finger, punching somebody. That'd be a horrific amount of karma. And you literally could have a heart attack the next day because you just did that act to hurt somebody. And that the general public doesn't understand this. It's really important to know, like every deed, every thought, and every action or every word is your health, basically. And your health can be spiritual health or mental health or emotional health or physical health. These are all health of the body. There's different layers.
Yeah. But it all begins with the thoughts, and they provide feelings.
Yeah, and if the thoughts are all crazy and all over the place, you got to decipher what's you and what's not you. Now, we're not going to get into that whole ball of wax today, but there's ways to know that too. And if you open yourself up enough with meditation, with compassion, with mindfulness, and doing, say, jumping in ice barrels, I'm not even kidding you, but doing all that stuff for the physical side, you're going to open up all your cells to a whole new world. And you're going to start understanding things you could never understand before. It's the most amazing thing. I mean, that's why I keep cultivating, because I want to see what the next thing is, the next thing. Right. I'm not saying it's easy, because it's not.
No, nothing's easy, but
nothing good's easy.
Right, yeah. Nothing good. But the bottom line is you're doing it, and that's the difference. You're not sitting back and saying, oh, everything's great. No. I can coast. There's no coasting.
No, I tried it.
You're
going to go backwards.
Yeah.
You
either
cannot
growing
stay still.
Or dying.
Exactly. Well, I don't know about dying, but you're definitely either you're moving ahead or you're moving backwards. And I don't want to go back to the stuff I used to have. I don't like that stuff,
Well, by you wanting to learn more and know more, that's what it's all about.
Totally.
It's a process, not perfection.
So you want to talk about the book?
Yes.
All right.
This is your book. What a long, amazing journey it's been. From debilitating illness to abundance. Tell me more. How did it happen?
Sure. It happened really fast, as you can see. But what's packed in here is an amazing amount of information. It's about my life, and when COVID hit, I'm like you. I can't sit around and do nothing. I mean, I'm going to Home Depot every day. Home Depot is the only store open. I don't even have any beds or grass or trees in my backyard, but I made the beds off the ground and I planted everything. Now I have an avocado tree that's like probably 15 feet tall. I love it. And somehow it's growing in a bed that's like I don't know how it's doing it, but and then I started saying, what else can I do? Because planning got a little boring, and I had a new office. I just signed the lease 2 months before, but then everybody bailed ship. They go, we're not coming out, we're not going anywhere. I go, well, I'm going to go there, and I started going there because people are going to need me. They're sick. And I started looking at all the different doctors, the protocols, the geniuses that I love, Holtorf and others in the industry, functional guys. They're the gurus, right? They wrote the papers on vitamin D and immune system and zinc and all this stuff. And I looked at everyone, and so I made my own protocol with ivermectin, and we had about 500 people, and nobody went to the hospital. And over that time period, it took a while, but I got really bored because, you don't have a lot of business either, so I wrote this book. I started thinking about it. It comes to you. A book is something that kind of comes to you in bits and pieces. And you start to see, I need to put this down. Somebody needs to know the story. And so, one day I was thinking about my past, and the next day I'm thinking about even with COVID around me, I still had an amazing life. Everything's great. I wasn't worried. I kind of knew what it was from on a spiritual level. Our teachings helped us understand that, so I wasn't really worried. But I knew I had to get it out there to the public. So I started with the past history, and Don helped me make a movie of this too, about how kind of sick I was in the old days, and up to 30 years old when I said, this is the day that changes my life. Wow, I don't want this anymore. And you know what everybody said? Oh, you need to go, you wanker, they were British. My best friend, you need to just go home, well, you're just a party pooper. And I was like, well, okay, and I did, and I see those guys on Facebook.
Right.
I saw them at my wedding, and then I see them on Facebook, and that's it, since 1991. But I wrote this book with a lot of that history, not boring, but enough so you can see where I was coming from. And then that one day that I went to the church and I went in front of my home, and my Chinese landlord came next to me and gave me the book for the meditation, because that really completely changed my life. And it was interesting, back in the day, I never really had 2 nickels to rub together. Like every vacation, I had to allot my money. Okay, I need to get suntan lotion, but how much is that? And okay, the trip's paid for. And I had like nothing. I'll just get some scraps when I get there. And after I started doing the meditation, I changed my thinking just a little bit. It wasn't even that much. I had a yard sale in Princeton, right? And I had all these old books. I didn't even think about it. They were outdated science books, right? Big things, real expensive. They all sold, all the clothes sold. I made like $400.
Wow.
Yeah, and after that, I went to Oregon, and I didn't have hardly any money. But it seemed like I always had money.
Well, you changed your thinking.
It just
changed
came
your
to
life.
me. Yeah,
because you're putting out that vibration of having money.
But I didn't think of the money, though, because I always was like, I don't care about money. That's probably why I never had any, because I think it's almost like not dirty, but I don't want to get into that. Anyway, so
And you won't get into that by that thinking.
And you
I
won't
promise
get
you.
into any,
Yeah, that's a
because
guarantee.
I just had a big wake up about 3-4 months ago, where I realized a lot of things was happening in my office with that whole attitude. And the office was kind of going like this. It was going, it's floundering, we'll just pay the rent, and this. All of a sudden, one day I realized that I had a lot of animosity towards the landlord because of some things they had done. And I justified that. It was like that thing I could justify and hold on to it. And then one day it just came to me after the medication. I was like, well, I need to give that up. That's an attachment. Who cares what it is? And in our practice, all attachments. So I changed my mind one day, and they were doing some pretty bad stuff. And if you really look at it in a material way, it could destroy you. Like if you were thinking that. And the rent went up astronomically, in all those COVID months that we thought we're going to get free. We had to pay for every single one because they slid down 17%. Huge corporation, right? And they got their lawyers, everything was ready to go. Okay, you pay or you get out. And so we had to go through all that. But at the end of it, I didn't know what would happen, so I just kept going. And I was like, okay, I don't know. But I still had animosity. So now this is fast forward maybe a year later, and we're doing better and better. We're paying, and so one day I said, that's it. All of a sudden, the next 3 weeks,
wow, that's
just
great.
skyrocketed.
Well, thank you for
It was
sharing
amazing.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been great.